Doneva Bays, class of 1997, women's basketball, women's volleyball, inducted into Hall of Fame 2009. Well, I went to Gate City High School and played 4 sports while I was there. Did not play volleyball till I was a freshman in high school. And after my freshman year of high school, Linda King, now Linda Doan, did a camp, and she said, "You're coming to Milligan." And that was a freshman in high school, and I go, "Huh?" She goes, "You're coming to Milligan." So I said, "Okay." And so really that was the first start of Milligan on my map. I played the rest of my seasons at Gate City, and she actively recruited me literally from my freshman year. She came to almost every home game my junior and senior year of high school. She was part of our family. I mean, she knew my mom, she knew my grandpa, she knew my dad, you know, my sisters. They all hugged her just like she was my aunt sitting in the stands versus a future coach. So really that was the biggest attraction for me and for Milligan. I think the next part would be that I got to play 2 sports. Yeah, Coach Doan, I mean, definitely had the most impact in my recruiting process because Coach Aubrey wasn't the coach here when I was recruited. You know, we had another basketball coach who I still believe that Coach King just said, "Hey, you're giving her a scholarship for basketball." He came to watch me play, and he was really excited about me coming to Milligan for basketball. But Coach Aubrey wasn't hired until I had already signed with Milligan to play basketball and volleyball. But both had very impactful meaning to my life, just as a student, as an athlete, more as an adult now. They're both very much mentors in my life. In my own coaching career, I go to both of them with lots of coaching questions and feel like when I have tough decisions to make, I look back at what decision they may have made when I was a student here. Well, I have lots of memories of Milligan. I think, you know, Milligan is a very special place. I knew playing here, I loved the school, I loved the sports I played, and mostly in due part to my teammates and my coaches. You know, I was lucky enough to play 2 sports. That doesn't happen a lot in college athletics, especially today, just because seasons have become more year-round seasons, and you know, schools don't allow people to get scholarship for 2 sports, and most athletes are smarter than to play 2 sports with no money. So I feel like, you know, memories, there's so many that you could look back on. I think my senior year probably was the most special for me, just because in volleyball and basketball we were national qualifying teams, and that's a huge accomplishment for one sport, and for me to be able to do it in 2 sports in the same year, that was a very big year for us. You know, awesome, and I feel like I still chase that dream now as a coach here at Milligan. You know, when I came in 8 years ago, that was my dream, to get us back to where we were when I finished at Milligan. You know, we're still chasing that dream. We haven't made it there yet. I think we're right on the break of making that. Hopefully this next year we will become the next team to make it to the national tournament for volleyball. But I think it was very momentum just in the building of that program. Coach King only coached me my first 2 years while I was here at Milligan, and then we had Debbie Cutshaw as my coach, and she was a very strong player at King College, now King University, and it was really tough because she was a year older than I was. We went from being middle against middles to now coach player, but I feel like the transition of her coming and just the success she had at King, bringing it to Milligan, only was, you know, very strong in her first 3 years here. You know, I don't think it would be as hard then as it is today. We only had about a 2-week, I guess, crossover of volleyball and basketball. Usually basketball had started 6 a.m. practices, and I didn't always get to partake in those just because of volleyball season. Coach Aubrey was very good at not taking away from one sport to add to his sport. I did go usually and attend all those sessions, but I didn't have to actually do the workouts most of the time if we were in the meat of our conference schedule for volleyball. But I think it would be much more difficult for students to do that now, just because the demands of sports have become so much stronger. And back then, which was so long ago, we had more of a break between seasons, or seasons just didn't go as long as they are now. Yeah, I think, some of my strongest friendships have came from women's basketball here. I think my volleyball group was very close, but basketball, I think we're together over Christmas break. You're together over longer seasons. We were here in the big snow of '97, that 2 weeks of no campus. It was just us. So I definitely feel like there's a bond there that's much stronger. And I think the success on our basketball teams have been much stronger than our volleyball as a whole. Tanya Bailey, she's a Jenkins. She was a senior when I was a freshman, and I remember thinking, gosh, she's really good. And she had the best crossover move underneath, up and under, of anybody that you'll watch in the game. But I think she was a leader that had somebody for us to look up for. And so I kind of looked at her as just that example of I wanted to be like her. Then next on that basketball team, I guess I was the next basketball player to maybe go into Hall of Fame, which I went in for both sports. Whereas Glenda and Becky both are younger than I am. But huge success for both of their stories. Still today, Glenda is the best player I've ever seen play the game. I'll tell her that over and over again. And more than anything, it was her work ethic. She just came in every day and knew how to work hard. Her athleticism was good, but nowhere as good as other people we've seen. But she just worked harder than anybody else. I only got to play 1 year with Becky. And so Becky was a phenomenal player, but I was a senior and she was a freshman. So definitely different, I think, of how I looked at her then as a player, because I was in that leader role and kind of was a senior wanting my team to succeed. Whereas after I graduated, I stayed in town. I got to watch Becky develop into the player that she became. And, Becky had a very strong inside game, but she also had a great 10, 11-foot shotter, that she made a lot of points from the high post. One of the best free throw shooters, I think, that Milligan's ever had. So very successful. Well, when I came to Milligan, I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. And so that was the route I started, was exercise science and a biology major, so that I could do physical therapy. As I got a little further along in that, it was much harder to get observation hours. Being on the sideline when you're an athlete doesn't happen very much. And most physical therapy happened to the athletes, or the way you got hours in was being in the training room, and if you were playing 2 sports, you didn't have time to do that. So my gears quickly changed to where I thought that I would just go into education and maybe do teaching. And so I stayed in exercise science and biology majors. I was a double major in both of those, but really had anticipated going into teaching. Every year that I was here at Milligan, Linda King used me as a camp counselor every summer. So I would do camps with her all summer long for volleyball. And it came very natural for me to help other people grow in the game. Lori Mills will always say, yeah, Doneva was a great player, but she's really a player coach. That's a compliment she's always given. And I feel like I just kind of understood the game. So it kind of just naturally happened for me. I didn't anticipate that I would coach. But after graduating from Milligan, I had an opportunity to go to ETSU for a graduate assistant. And then from there it was, okay, an assistant job came my way, and then another assistant job to moving back home and Milligan becoming open. So it was just kind of like, this is the path God intended my life to be on. I always knew when I started coaching that when I became a head coach, this is where I would like to end my career, was at a small private liberal arts school. And Milligan is, one of the best that there is. So, and home for me is Gate City, Virginia. So both my parents are there. I have sisters there. So I knew that when I got to that point, it would be somewhere near my family. But I never knew exactly it would be Milligan, or as soon as it was. I had applied for other coaching jobs. I actually was a finalist for the ETSU job when Lindsay Devine had gotten that job. And at that time, not really knowing why I didn't get that job, but very thankful that I didn't, because I feel like if I would have been there, I would have never ended up at Milligan, just because I would have stayed on that Division I route. And there's something to be said about a small school, especially a Christian school that we get to share God, and I get to share my trials and my tribulations through my own life, and maybe help young people grow through those. Milligan really, as an institution, has not changed very much since I was a student here. It still has the same bylaws, the same traditions, the same morals as it had then, the same quality of education. I think in athletics, we definitely have grown our athletic department in more sports and more athletes. We didn't have JV programs. Now we have JV programs. I feel like the kids that are currently on my team could have been on my team when I played here. I don't think that our quality of athlete is really any better or any less. I feel like we've stayed pretty much consistent with having quality teams. In comparison to D1, I feel like the atmosphere of a school is a lot different. In my coaching career, it's about the same. My interaction with kids at a D1 school is pretty much the same as it is here. I always tried to show God in all my actions and build close relationships and help kids make difficult decisions. I think in the athletic department, you're able to get some of those stronger, faster, taller, maybe more athletic kids at that level than we are here. But so much of that is built on just the tradition of Milligan and our academic status, because it is much harder to be a student athlete at Milligan than it is at most mid-major Division I schools, just because the academic is so tough. I think most of it has stayed the same. I love that Milligan has stayed to a small school, that, our teacher-student ratio is still very small, that teachers are really proactive in the success of student athletes, that I don't think anyone on campus wants anyone to fail, whether you're a coach or a professor or staff member, that we're really out for every person's greater good here. And so I feel like that was a part that I loved when I was here, because I had lots of mentors, whether they were teachers or coaches or just staff people. Dennis Helsebeck, was one of the greatest fans that I had as a student athlete here. He's still today one of the greatest fans as a coach. And I feel like he was just very much invested in my personal success versus his personal success. And I think that's still the same, and I'm very attracted to that still today. What does it mean to be a Buffalo? Well, I think, for me, it's a student athlete, because that was the majority of my life. And I think Buffaloes truly represent the athletic department. I love that our new campaign is this Be a Buff, and that now we have all kinds of different buffs. And for me, if you're looking for a small Christian school with great athletics, Milligan's the place for you. Yeah, I think it's such an honor to be inducted. I didn't do anything special here. I just played the sports I loved. I had great coaches and great teammates, and I feel very fortunate that I was chosen to be a Hall of Famer, but I don't necessarily think I did anything to do that. I feel like my coaches and my teammates just put me in a place that I could have success, but it's truly an honor, and I hope that I have more teammates join me in this, and that we'll all actually get to look at all of these videos and, reminisce about the good days, because they were good days.